Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, everyone. My name is Frederick. I'm one of the directors from Vis for Social Good. We wanted to record that section for people that actually missed the kickoff event last week. So I'm going to be focusing on how to get to the project and describe a bit about Vis for Social Good. I'm going to start sharing my screen and showing you our website. So this is the website. So to get started, you basically need to go to visforsocialgood.com.au. Vis for Social Good quickly is a non-for-profit. We're a group of data volunteers, and then we basically love visualizing data from non-for-profit and social enterprise. The way it works is very simple. The charity or the NGO basically provides the data. We organize events that go for usually a month, and then basically the data volunteers create data visualizations to try to visualize the impact on the data from the charity. While you're on the project page, the best way to access the current project for the WHO is through the link here. As you click on the link, you'll discover information about the project itself. So we've described obviously what WHO is, what they try to achieve. What's important as well is the call to action. Then the next session is accessing the dataset. The dataset is saved in Google Drive. So the best way to access it is to, if you click on the link, you get to that folder, which is the Google Drive. And then I would advise you to just download the whole folder, or just download the data folder, which contains the Excel file in there. The next section, the segment of the video would be run by the WHO team, and they're going to explain you the data set itself. So I won't keep you too long. I just want to focus on the resources that you got available. On that section, we also explain that you can use any tools available. The WHO has preferences for open sources tools like Kendo UI, Esri, but as you can see, you can always use Tableau, Power BI, any tools. Something that's also people have mentioned, you can have team submissions or personal submissions, individual submissions. Most of the users usually have individual submissions, but you can get into teams. I would also draw your attention to the guidance section. It's basically what the organization requires. As the focus on that project is about accessible data visualizations, you basically need to create a data visualization, the dashboard or report that is accessible, that meets the accessibility guidelines. Same thing, I won't get into too much detail, but you can read more about that section. We also created a open source list of tools that are available for you to use. There's a bunch of tools that you can use. They're all here. The video that the WHO team would record would basically focus on how to make dashboard or charts accessible for the vast majority of your users. People have also asked, those are the requirements. The way it would work is obviously the kickoff was last week, so you can disregard that. We've got until the 16th of May to create visualizations, dashboards. When you create your dashboard, your report, you can submit to that form. So when you click on that submission form there, just going to show you the form itself. So the form is there, and the way it works is you put your email, very, very simple. You put your name, city, country, occupation. We're asking you if you're the first time user or first-time volunteer, we've got a dashboard that basically shows the tracker. We've got a tracker. What's important is the link to submission there. So for example, if you were to create a Tableau Public link, you just put your link there. But sometimes people have a link to a Dropbox or a Google Drive or something on Canva. So as long as we've got a public accessible link, you just put the link in there. We also ask you if you're keen to present at the live event. So something also I want to explain is after the deadline. So the deadline is the 6th of May. After the deadline, all the submissions will be sent to the WHO team. The WHO team would select their favorite 5 projects, and then we'll be inviting those 5 volunteers to present at the live event on the 16th of May. And you can register there. That's the live event there, a week after. We asked the WHO team to select 5 projects just because we don't have time in an hour live presentation to basically see or hear sometimes we have 50 to 60 different submissions. So there's no competition, it's not a competition, there's no prizes to be won, but we still ask the organization, WHO, to select their favorite 5 submissions or 5 projects to present at the live event. But everybody is welcome to join. So even though you haven't been selected, you can still join the live event by clicking on that link, which is the Eventbrite link. The next part I want to cover is about support. If you click on that link, you'll be able to join our Slack channel. So I'm going to open Slack and show you. So this is our Slack channel there. When you open Slack and when you register to Slack, you'll see a project discussion page. That's basically where you ask questions, and then people from the WHO team will basically make sure that they answer your questions on the time in matter. We're also trying to what we call Feedback Friday. So as you start developing your dashboard, your visual, your chart, and you want some feedback, on the Friday, we'll be trying to get Feedback Friday going. So you go to the project discussion page, and then you might want to paste a screenshot or link and get feedback from the WHO team, but also from the volunteers. Obviously, you can ask questions at any time. So that was a quick overview of how the project works. The next section of the video will be delivered by the WHO team that would basically talk to you about the data set itself. If you have any questions, the best way is to contact us through info@visforsocialco.com or contact us through the website, which is there, Contact Us. And when you click on Contact Us, you just put your name and details, and that will go to us, just in case you have questions. For example, you're not able to join the Slack channel. Thanks for listening, and then I hope I can see you online in the Slack channel. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. I hope everyone can hear me well. Just give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down if it's not working very well. I just wanted to start with a little video because I think that it kind of encapsulates the essence of our data challenge today. So over to my colleague, Dorothy, if you can kick it off. Great.
Dorothy, video.
Even your team and people you work with.
Imagine trying to understand data visualization, but the design is not accessible to you. Imagine struggling to understand data on a color-coded map due to color blindness. Imagine the difficulty of interacting with complex data using only a mouse due to limited dexterity. Imagine struggling to understand a cluttered visual due to dyslexia. Now, how about you imagine an accessible digital world which opens doors to everyone to access vital information and powerful data. A world of limitless potentials and opportunities for all. That's the world I want to live in. You? Let's make data accessible to everyone.
Great, thank you. Thank you. I just want to start with a quick message for Viz for Social Good. Thank you for this opportunity to get connected with such a global community of data professionals and enthusiasts from around the world. I can see we have so many people from all over, all parts of the world. It's really great. So I'm Celine Hasman. I'm head of Frontier Technologies and Data. And I also play a dual role in terms of supporting or championing our digital accessibility program at the World Health Organization. I'm only going to take a few minutes to set the scene and tell you a little bit about WHO and some general insights about why this challenge. And then I'm going to hand over to my other WHO colleagues that are here with me today. So maybe if we can start next slide. Unfortunately, Kyle and our colleague was not able to make it today due to a personal emergency, but we have a colleague that stepped up, and Francesca Moro, who will be joining us instead, and we look forward to that session. I think most of you are familiar with the World Health Organization. However, I'm just going to do a quick recap just to set the scene. So WHO is a specialized agency of the United Nations, and it's responsible for promoting public health worldwide. The organization was established in 1948, and its headquarters in Geneva, Switzerland. So if you noticed on the top of our backgrounds, we all have a 75 because it was just our birthday last week. In terms of our mission, it's about health for all, and ensuring the attainment of the highest possible level of health and well-being around the world for everyone. The organization's goals are to promote health, keep the world safe, and serve the vulnerable. These goals basically reflect the organization's commitment to improving health and well-being by promoting healthier populations, achieving universal health coverage, and addressing health emergencies. So I'm going to move to the next slide, which is about the data challenge. And today's data challenge is focused on two objectives and aims: to promote awareness and understanding of, number one, disability data, and also digital accessibility. So we want to take those two aspects. So in terms of disability data, participants in the challenge will have the opportunity to immerse themselves and explore some real disability data that has been collected from around the world. And based on their insights, participants can then produce some compelling and creative data visualizations that convey a story. In essence, we're really trying to understand the disability data. That disability data is essential for promoting equitable access to resources and services, informing policy decision, and fostering awareness and inclusion among us all. It's very important that to understand that disability data, because that helps shape various agendas. In terms of digital accessibility, we know that we're becoming increasingly reliant on technology for our daily activities. We witnessed that during the pandemic. The experience today, as we started out, we had a lot of issues with accessibility. So the benefit of accessibility is not just for persons with disabilities, it's for everyone. It needs to be as seamless as possible. So this means that inaccessible digital assets can exclude persons with disabilities from accessing vital information and services. So healthcare, education, employment opportunities, that's if it's not accessible, if our digital assets are not accessible, they can exclude various populations. So identifying and addressing barriers that exclude people with disabilities is important when designing your digital assets. So simple things like incorporating features such as alt text, color contrast, headings, all goes a long way to help make digital assets accessible to a much wider audience. And at the end of the day, prioritizing digital accessibility can ensure that everyone, regardless of ability, can access and benefit the wealth of information opportunities available online. So as a final note, I'll close this introduction by saying, on the next slide, let's work together to make data accessible to everyone and ensure that no one is left behind. And as we started out in the video, 1.3 billion people around the world have significant disability, which is 16% of the world's population, and that's 1 in 6. So let's dive into the details of the challenge with my colleagues. But get inspired, tell a powerful story, and make an impact with your message. And on the next slide, I just want to mention that by participating in this challenge, you'll earn a digital badge that you can promote your achievements as a data visualization champion, which you can share on social media, and we encourage you to do that. So over to my colleague, Piotr.
Good morning, good afternoon, hello. My name is Piotr. I'm the UX strategist and accessibility consultant. I'm a middle-aged man with the gray hair, wearing glasses, as I mentioned, and inclusive design and accessibility are critical elements in the creating products, services, and experience that can be accessed by everyone, including the people with a disability. Inclusive design refers to process of creating the products, services that are accessible and usable by as many people as possible, regardless of the age, ability, or the background. This approach involves considering to diverse needs and experience of the people and incorporating this understanding into the design process and create more inclusive solution. On the other hand, we're having the accessibility, which focuses specifically on removing barriers that prevent people with the disability from accessing and using digital products and services. Very important. For example, what does it include? For example, providing alternative formats of content using the descriptive text of the images, provided the proper color contrast. This is very important when you follow the challenge. Keyboard navigation, providing the caption, etc. Incorporating the inclusive and design and accessibility principles into design process can have significant benefits for users and businesses. Remember, there is a two side of always the users and the businesses. And if we go to the next slide, the benefits of designing and accessibility using the UCD. UCD stands for the user-centered design. It's an approach to design which focus on the needs, on the goals and preferences of the users, every user. By this, we can improve the overall usability and experience of the user. So user can have or product can be easier to use and to navigate. If we go further and by prioritizing the user, the next slide, if we prioritize the needs and the goals of the users over the feature and the functionality. So we trying to understand the user, what they really need, what does they need. We can improve the user satisfaction. And if we go further, we're building services and the product. By using the next slide, by using the UCD, we can help the reduce development cost, which is today huge. Why? Because by the time that we discovering and addressing the accessibility issues early in the stage, even in the paper mockup, or in the way how to analyze the data, but rather than the making the cost and time to change the later on. So if we think about our solution on the earlier stage, we can reduce and we can spend the money on the potentially on the different activities. If we go further, by implementing certain strategy and techniques, we can improve the productivity and efficiency for all of us. So it means you can use the more products and the apps on the daily basis. Sounds brilliant. And if we go on the last slide, which is also very important from the business perspective, by designing the products which are accessible and inclusive for everyone, we can gain the competitive advantage in the marketplace. So we can be at first who offer the services and the product for everyone. And with this message, I will hand over to Dorothy, and good luck with your assignment.
And good morning or afternoon, everyone. Is my voice clear enough? Okay. The data we are using come from the Global Burden of Disease study, which is hosted by the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluations in the US. The Global Burden of Disease studies is the biggest epidemiological study today, with the data for more than 1,000 health conditions. The data is from 2021. Even though there are other tools that collect data on disability, this dataset provides the most consistent approach to compare prevalences of disabilities across regions and countries. Next slide, please. The dataset you have includes percentages and numbers of people with significant disability. Significant disability means only those people who have moderate or severe levels of disability, which means that we have excluded people with minor levels for this exercise. The dataset gives you the opportunity to disaggregate data by sex, age, WHO region, country income level, and also by underlying health conditions and impairments. Next slide, please. The data has already been used in the WHO Global Report on Health Equity for Persons with Disabilities, but we presented simple graphs to explain the data. Next slide, please. The visuals that you can create are really important for a range of different stakeholders: policymakers, academics, civil society organizations, and also persons with disabilities. For these visuals, people can understand better the magnitude of disability, the distribution, what drives it in terms of underlying conditions, etc. The visualizations can be a powerful advocacy tool as well. And when they are presented in an accessible way, they can reach more people. Next. In terms of the key messages the visual can transmit, it is that persons with disabilities are not a minority. They form a substantial part of our population, and everyone at some point in their life can have a disability. Thanks, and over to Celine.
So the devil is in the details, they say, would be the data source before you make your data visualization. So Frederick will share one XLSX file, Microsoft Excel file, and in it would be 10 sheets, one of which is a data dictionary. It would have in the tab called data dictionary, and then there are 9 sheets after that. In the data dictionary, you will find a description of the columns and fields of the 3 data tables in 6 languages. That would be English, French, Spanish, Russian, Chinese, and Arabic. These are the official WHO languages. The data itself is only in English, but the data dictionary is translated into these languages. So what about the other 6 sheets? The other 6 sheets are for the data categories. What ages are used, causes of the disability, the level of detail of the costs that's been noted in the data, the location of that record, is it in which WHO region, is the figure a number or a percentage, and the sex of that value. And there are 3 data sheets, one describing or listing the data by age, and then by income, and then by WHO region. So I hope that is clear enough, and we are really enthusiastic and looking forward to your submissions. And we've been preparing for this and really looking forward to increasing awareness inside the organization globally. Given WHO's role in health, we really hope that this will move forward the cause for digital accessibility. Thank you.
I thought we could do a bit of a Q&A first if you want to have questions for the WHO team. And because you can't hear me very well, I'm not going to speak. But if you have questions, just the team is there. So please ask any question about the project or the process. And then Lindsay and Emily would take over. Any question from anyone?
So how will they, if I may ask first, so where will the participants find the data file and will they submit?
So the data file is in the project page. So I've just put in the chat. I can send it to you, but I just posted the link in the chat. So that's the Vis for Social Good project page. And in there, there's a data description, data section, and people click on that and it links to a Google Drive, and people will be able to download the Excel file with the associated documents. So the link is there again. I'm just pasting it.
I see a question. I see a question. I'll read it out. The question is, what platform should we use to build the report, the dashboard? Or the answer is we're agnostic. We have indicated on the page that you can use any tool that you prefer. We have indicated the preferences that we would like, but it's up to you if you have a preference. You can use open source, whether it's Kendo UI, Svelte, that's fine. If you use a commercial product, Microsoft Power BI, ArcGIS, Tableau, any of them is fine. And then I have another question, which says, can we get the presentation slide used during the session? Absolutely. We'll put it in the same folder so that you can get that hold of that.
There's also a question, I believe this could be for Francesca. Is it normal that there's a tab for the age regions and they have the mean, lower, and upper percentage equal to 0?
You repeated the question, sorry, Dorothy.
Okay, I'll just read it out. I'm looking at the data and I see that the tab age and regions have mean, lower, and upper percentage equal to 0. Is it normal?
Let me check to the data and I will answer the question in the chat. Thank you. I will get back to you on this.
There's a question. You got it.
Go ahead. Okay, so there's another question. Are all the tools preferences you mentioned accessible by design? So that's a good question. A lot of the commercial products are moving towards becoming accessible, and you will notice that they have an accessibility statement that they publish, because in fact the interesting thing about accessibility is that it's being enacted into law around various countries around the world. It's there is a timeline, of course, so it's not immediate, but this is happening, and so most big vendors are moving in that direction. Some of the open source are making a campaign, and I think even as part of, there is something called Global Accessibility Awareness Day, where people are aware, there is a pledge to encourage open source to move in that direction. And so it's definitely something that is available. I don't know if Piotr, maybe you want to come in on that.
Yeah, so definitely if you want to double check if the product is accessible, you can look for the volunteer product accessibility template. Usually, for example, the Microsoft and other brands really looking to building the accessibility by design. So yes, it's really growing, as Celine mentioned. It's still, there is room for improvement, as you can see. So, but definitely looking for the VPAT, Volunteer Product Accessibility Template. So those brands who publish this, for sure, they plan or they already build more or less accessible product.
So there's another question here. Is there an individual participation or a team, or can a team participate? For us, I don't know, Frederick, if you have any restrictions. We don't have any problem if it's a team or a person. It's fine if you decide to team up, I think.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, sorry, Piotr.
Yeah, so yeah, but Frederick, do you want to add something? Individual participation of the team?
We don't mind. There's no.
Yeah, so you can work, but you know, always if you connect with the, you have a fantastic Slack opportunity. If you connect globally, it might be a really big fan. And there is a next message. Is there email we can write with the follow-up question with the analyzing? So there is a Slack. So I'm already here on the Slack. So if you have any question, every morning and every evening, I will be checking. So we don't promise that we come back to you with the 1 hour, but the 24 hours with the working days, it should be reasonable. So should any question there, and we try to answer them as quick we can. And already the Frederick posted the link to the Slack, so please do go there, and you can find us. It's not only me, but also the team members of the WHO.
Okay, I have another very good question, which I think is for Piotr. Can you link us perhaps to online tools or guides that can test the participants' data visualization accessibility? Excellent question. Yeah. And yes.
Excellent question. Yes, we together with the Frederick, we prepare a short list of the tools. There are mainly the web one, but if there will be more interest in the mobile, yes, we will be adjust this list. Please also follow the W3C tool list. There is more than 100 different tools, because, for example, if you decide to use a mobile or the tablet, yes, there is a possibility to verify accessibility on the mobile also. So if you have a question with that, I strongly believe that Frederick also posted the testing tools. One of them is the Andy, headings map, and some automation tools. So if you're looking for more, just shoot me and I will try to put much more.
But please use Slack as the first point of contact.
Yeah.
With previous project, we've seen volunteers asking for feedback in Slack as well. They might discover some very interesting thing with the data or have a question. Slack is very your gold nugget. That's where you go and then you ask. Piotr will be there, Celine will be there. But the volunteers also help each other. So I think use Slack as a first way of contact. We also want to try to do Feedback Friday. That's something that Emily suggested. So if you feel like posting questions or joining online on some Fridays. I know we got different time zones, but there's also a good way maybe to ask questions and get feedback from your work. So keep that in mind, feedback Friday. They will be on Fridays, depending on
Yeah, and also remember that you can be inspired by each of you. Maybe some of you already know the fantastic tool, so just inspire and post. If you know, I know perfect tool for the verify accessibility in the Power BI, just share it with all of us. So we also very keen to learn from you. So remember about it, and maybe we can go to the next question.
Can I just make a
Please.
comment? In addition, one good thing is to always, if you know colleagues that have or friends that have disabilities, is to always test it, because that really is part of the exploration, is understanding the experience that people have when they're having problems with your digital assets. So I think that's a really important aspect of understanding and exploring that. Over, Scott.
Thank you for that. Yeah, definitely. So for sure, ask your parents, ask your colleagues, maybe go to the disability center to show them, hey guys, I'm having something. Could you spend some time with us? Okay, so thank you for that. I'm also seeing that David posted the link to the tools. Thank you, David, for that. That is really great. And what are the most important aspects you're looking for in the final dashboard? Celine, do you want to take it?
In the final dashboards.
Yes.
So yeah, okay. I'll highlight that at high level. But one was, we want to make sure that you are the visualization is accessible. That's very important. The other one is the impact or the story that you're telling with the data that we've provided. So you can look at there is on the cover about the challenge. There's a bit of information. There's a link there to our report, that global report that was published by WHO, and it provides a lot of background on the health inequities and challenges that people face. So you can use it, and this is the data that was used to build that report. So I mean, it has a lot of key messages in there, and so I think that would be a big hint to look at and learn a little bit about what are the key messages there. And I think yeah, I think that was pretty much it. Dorothy, anything to add on that?
So I reposted the page of from This for Good, for social good, and because it's quite comprehensive in describing the guidance and the criteria that we are going to look at. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. I see a message
But also remember, guys, we're looking for the story and maybe some creativity that you will show for us. So perhaps you can also think about the out of box, not necessarily, oh, I will just create something. Think out of the box. Remember that you're building something for everyone, and surprise us. That might be something that we'll be more keen to looking for your submission.
Mm-hmm. Another question, perhaps for Vish for Social Good. Where can I see the meeting? Where's the meeting recording stored?
I'll communicate on Slack.
Okay.
And I'll send a follow-up email after. So Slack or email, but Slack is, as I said, the very first spot you should go.
Is there an available rubric we can refer to? I'm not sure, is that what the question is there? Perhaps Jomar, you can expand on that. Jomar?
He wrote a scoring guide.
Yeah,
just a guide for scoring the activity or the submissions.
Oh, You mean criteria, I guess.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, we can put a little bit, we'll post some stuff on, since there's a bit of interest, we'll post something on Slack about that.
The general idea, though, would be those three criteria that Celine mentioned earlier, which are design, impact, and storytelling. Yeah. Sorry, accessibility. That's the main. That's the main thing. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's another good question here. Can we use other public data sets?
Maybe that's a question for Francesca. I think, I don't know. Francesca, do you have any feedback?
We have no other data set available to use for the public, but if you know an available data set and you want to use it, of course, and you can also share with the other participants, just email us.
Yeah, but I would caveat that in terms of highlighting the source where it came from, if it's something else. But I think our preference is we have some good data there. So, and it does give a strong message, but yes, it's possible to use others.
It is the one that we shared is the official WHO data reported by the member states. Is that right, Francesca?
Yes.
The global disease data that are available to everyone. But of course, if you have other public data sets, that you want to use, you can do that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Lots of amazing questions. Any more questions for the team? No more questions? If it's the case, I might just pass on to you're here, Lisa, are you? I think I saw you. Saw a couple of comments.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. So Lindsay works in the database space in healthcare. So she's a database health practitioner, and she's leading Project HealthViz. And we just collaborate as a two community activities. So let's say over to you if you want to say a few words before we get Emily to deliver a workshop.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Frederick, for partnering on this. I'm so thrilled to see so many people interested in the Viz for Social Good dataset with the WHO. This is fantastic. And it sounds like a wonderful opportunity for everybody. So real quickly, I'm Lindsay. I've been working in the healthcare field for almost 15 years. I used to be a behavioral health clinician. Before I got into data visualization, I specifically only work with healthcare data in my current day-to-day job for a company called Health Data Viz. So I'm very passionate about healthcare. In 2018, I started a community project called Project HealthViz, which's goal was really just to share the stories of people's health and give data sets to individuals in the data visualization community and allow them to visualize it. A goal of mine was to increase the number of health-related visualizations that I saw regularly in community spaces such as Tableau Public or on the web, because I believe that the more visualizations that are out there, more people become aware of health issues, and there's a great opportunity to reduce stigma and increase accessibility to this information. So Project HealthViz is a monthly project where I share data sets just publicly, trying to reduce the hurdle of finding data sets in the healthcare space. So I will drop, Fred just dropped my website. So that is where all the information is. And there's also additional websites from long ago. I'm going back to 2018. So if you ever need any health related data sets, they're there. But as it relates to this partnership, it's really just that I'm going to help share this in other venues so that hopefully we reach even more individuals than just those who, are all on this call, and get more people to participate in this awesome project and visualize this data. So I think that's about it. But I do have, as I think Frederick mentioned, there is clearly a submission form for Viz for Social Good. You can also submit to my tracker, and it's just so that I can, myself and other individuals, have a large source to find all the data visualizations that people have created for any of the projects over the course of the years. And I also am on social media. So if you are one who uses Twitter or LinkedIn, you can feel free to tag me. I know Frederick did put in the description on your Vision for Social Good website. I'm at Zendall Data, which we can put in there, and tag myself and Project Vision for Social Good and the WHO, and we'd love to see it. And I'd be thrilled to share any of the things that you guys develop. So yeah, and feel free to reach out if you have questions about what I've been doing or any of this, but this is really cool. So thanks for having me, and yeah, can't wait to see all this.
Hey there.
Oh yeah. I won't stay too long. So I've known Emily and Lindsay for a long time. Emily is as a quick intro, based in the US. I'll let Emily introduce herself, but she works in data space for Red Hat, and she's very passionate with accessibility database, accessible guidance, and I thought who's best to us, so feedback and reach out. Emily is very kindly offered to share experience and knowledge, best practice. So Emily, thanks a lot. I think I'm very grateful that you can spend some time in Italy for you guys. So I'll leave you the floor, and then hope everyone can stay around and you can share your knowledge about accessibility guidelines.
Great. Thank you so much for having me here. So I am going to share some tips for creating more accessible data experiences. Frederick, can you just give me a thumbs up that you can see my screen?
Yes, I can see screen.
Perfect. Okay. So as Fred mentioned, I work in the data space. I am a Tableau enablement consultant. I think of myself as more of a visual analytics consultant, because whether it's Tableau, which is the tool I primarily use, or Google Sheets, or custom-built applications that have data visualizations in them, I want people to create really good data experiences. I'm also a product owner and an accessibility advocate. And my journey in accessibility, just to give you a super quick background, when I worked in the public sector for the US federal government, I was a business system administrator for a reporting tool that was external to our agency. And so we had to comply with this thing called Section 508, which is really that products had to be accessible. Any products of the US government had to be accessible. And so that was my introduction. And little did I know that that introduction back in 2011, which I thought of as more of a checklist approach to work, would really take me to where I'm at today. I always love for people to experience the data, because I believe that data can change us. And I think we all do, since we're all on this call. But not everybody experiences data the same way. And part of that came to be, like, I started to realize that when my daughter was reading a book. My daughter has dyslexia, and she was trying to read a book, and she was in tears because she couldn't understand why there were 3 L's next to each other. And I looked at the page and I'm like, baby doll, there's not 3 L's, that's a capital I and 2 lowercase L's. So the font choice, the type choice, the typeface, that matters. And to somebody with a disability, they experience that book, in this particular case, they experience that differently. Or I think about my dad, where he has macular degeneration, and so he's losing his sight. And now he's starting to use some assistive technologies And I think about how my dad experiences life and what things could be better for him. And it's through some of my work in this space that I've been able to help my parents think about different things, like the little tactile buttons that they can put on their microwave or their oven so that my dad can continue to cook, which is something he enjoys. And while I really thought it was about others, it's really about me too. So we talk about disabilities, and there are some disabilities that people will immediately own or acknowledge that they have, or because they're physical or because they're out there. And then there are some people that have those invisible disabilities. You wouldn't know it by looking at them. And I tend to be in that camp. In 2021, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and it came along with some depression. And so how I experience charts, graphs, everyday work, even making sure I was here on this call today, all of those things, like how my life is now, impacts how I show up and how I consume information. And so it started to be a checklist to, it was about others to, it's about every one of us. And so that's how I got to where I am today and why I'm on the other side of the screen. And by the way, I forgot to say Emily Kund, and some people may describe me as a middle-aged white woman with dark curly hair. Today I'm wearing red lipstick and I have computer glasses on. All right, so let's dig into this deck. I'm going to skip this. Well, no, actually I won't, because I think it's really important. I'm going to cover some of this background quickly because I think some of it's already been covered. I would love to have that video from the WHO about accessibility because that was so amazing. So for me, I took this definition and I think I picked it up from Microsoft, and I just made it simple. What is accessibility? It's making the experience available to as many people as possible. And I think that this is a good question to ask yourself when developing charts or dashboards or infographics, kind of insert the data experience. Just as a side note, I try to use data experience. I'm trying to get that as just a regular part of my vocabulary. When I say data experience, I'm talking about data visualizations, dashboards, charts, graphs. But because I understand visualization, it has this connotation of being visual, of sight, and accessibility is so much more than that. And I'm trying to use experiences because I think it's a bit more inclusive, but I haven't fully adopted it into my vocabulary yet. So if you hear me switch back and forth, that's why. I kind of covered this, but your why. You all are here, which is amazing. I love that there are so many people who want to join in on this challenge. You know, I talked a little bit about, imagine somebody you love can't read the words. They can't make out the colors. They're so frustrated, and you would do anything you could to help the person you care about. And so if you need to tap into that, this is my permission, this is my invitation to you to tap into that why. You know, for my daughter, for my dad, for my loved one, whatever it needs to be, for that promotion, whatever your why is, tap into that. And so, you know, when I first started in the accessibility space, a lot of people just said, hey, it's visual. This is a visual medium. There's not much we can do. But who needs it? It's actually more people than what we think. So there's the type, and there's like a time element to this. The type, there's sight, sound, dexterity, comprehension. So yes, it includes sight, but it's so much more. And then when you layer on time elements of situational, so let's just say dexterity, for example, situational, I actually have arthritis that was another little fun thing that popped up for me. I have arthritis in my fingers and I get trigger finger. So that's something that just depending sometimes on what I eat, that situation, like it really impacts my ability to use my hands. Or temporary, where maybe I'm trying to, like I'm on mobile versus being on my laptop, or I've broken my finger, but it's not permanent and it'll heal and go back to normal. Or permanent is maybe I don't have a finger, maybe I don't have a hand. And so when you start layering on these different types and these different time elements, you start to see this number grow. And I think that's why this acknowledgement of it's more than just sight, it's more people than what we think about originally. That's why this matters. So what's required? I just called this Pour It On. POUR is the acronym from WCAG, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. And I'm just high level going over this, but perceivable, a user must be able to easily identify content with their senses, sight, sound in some cases, or touch. Operable, you must be able to use different means of engaging with the content. So not only the mouse, but keyboard navigation, screen readers. And that's an example of being operable. Can you operate and navigate, control the data experience? Understandable. Any information or data that's presented, is it clear? Does it reduce cognitive load? And there's like a whole thing on cognitive load, and I'll cover that a little bit. But are you helping people comprehend what you're trying to convey? And that's really the gist, or the too long didn't read part of it. And then robust. Is it compliant with standards, with the users? Does it have compliant? Does it work with assistive technologies? So that's at a high level what the requirements are. Because there were some questions about how can I tell if my visualization is accessible? I will show you the tool that I use. Of course, this is up to you whether you use this tool or not, but my goal is to give you information to add those tools in your toolbox that you can use that you have at your disposal. Oh, there was a slide that shouldn't have been in there. Okay, so designing with accessibility in mind. I think Pietro talked about this a little bit, but knowing your audience, that user-centered dashboard design is so key. So if you know your audience and design for them, you will, kind of the byproduct, I think, is accessibility. And I think that that's really helpful and very actionable when your audience is small, or when your audience is at work and you can go and ask everybody. But when you're creating public data experiences like this, where more people will be able to access it, or maybe you put your visualizations on Reddit or Tableau Public or whatever the community is, you put it out there for mass consumption. What about then? Because it's not like you can like just call up everybody or Zoom, or it's not like you're going to be able to reach every single person. So what then? And I think whoever asked the question, hey, what are the minimum requirements? What are you looking for? That was really smart, because that was trying to get to know your audience. And so they said, look, accessibility. There are some key things that I'll cover that will help you in creating something that is as accessible as it can be for mass consumption. I am in the camp of there is no, the only 100% accessible, like perfectly accessible data experience is the one you create for yourself. because you are your own audience and you know what you can comprehend and what you can't, what you like and what you don't, what works for you and what doesn't. Outside of that, it gets to be harder and harder because there will be design choices that you'll make and there will be a trade-off, and you have to consider, is this trade-off worth it? What is the impact of adding an icon versus not? And I'll touch on that later on. Recognizing exclusions, those those challenges that people have, those accessibility needs, solving for one and extending to many. This is just general advice. Be consistent with your conventions, provide choice, and prioritize content. So this is more than just a requirements gathering exercise when you learn about your audience. I'll also provide a link to the deck so that way you can go back and reference some of this. But I think there was also a comment earlier about, hey, get feedback. If you know somebody who has a disability, whether a parent or invisible, get their feedback. That is valuable because they are part of the mass that may be consuming your work. How to ask if somebody needs accessibility. And I think these are just general questions that can be helpful. And you may also be implementing these in your daily practice as data visualization practitioners. But I had this come up during a accessibility hackathon we ran at work, and I thought it was a great question of like, how do you ask without being in somebody's business? Like, you know, you don't want to violate anything. So I wrote a list of questions here. Like, what would make it easy for you to consume the data? What's your preference on charts that you find easy to read? Again, these are very similar. Some of these are very similar to user-centered design. So there's a list of questions here that you can reference as you build out your visualizations. Solving for one, extending to many. This is really, to me, this is like there's multiple benefits to doing one using a certain approach. I call it curb cutting your work because if you think about the curb cuts, those little dips on the corners or on the sidewalks, that's a curb cut. And they were put there for wheelchairs or folks that needed that, but now parents with strollers or kids on scooters, bikes, other people use them. So you've solved for the person who has that accessibility need, but then other people are benefiting from it as well. So an example here is visually impaired individuals. So solving for one, you could have a big number, a band that's color contrasted. The way that extends to many is somebody who needs their attention called to that number. Maybe they're highly distracted or stressed out about something and they just need to like focus in on what matters most. That band is a great way to do that. So that's how you can solve for one, extend to many. Be consistent with your conventions. This is something that I didn't realize how important it was until I went through an audit of mine, of one of my visualizations. And that's when I had this light bulb moment of, oh, we don't all experience this the same way. So it's really important that you use titles, headers, subheaders, depending on the tool that you're using. If you're coding something, tag it with header or subheader or body of text, because that means something. It means something to screen readers. My mistake that I made, which I found during this audit, was that I just used a text box because it looked a little better than using the title. But the text didn't give any kind of indication that that was really a header. And so somebody using a screen reader would have missed that cue. Have consistent color usage. That helps people understand, if blue is for Africa, then make blue for Africa all throughout. Don't use blue for Africa on one chart and then use blue for America on the next. That is creating more load on somebody's brain to go, okay, well, wait, it was here, it was this on that chart, now it's this, wait, is it the same thing? What's going on? It's distracting from the message that your data is trying to convey, that data story. Apply conventions. So typically small means less. So less size, less color. Again, don't make people's brains work harder than they need to, especially in this age where we're so used to like having that quick hit of information right in our phones or on our laptops. Don't make them work harder than necessary. And then consistently apply your layout. This is something just from like a general, like doing multiple dashboards. Consistently apply a layout so that people know what to expect to help them focus. Excuse me. And then provide choice. This is where we get, and hopefully you'll see the tie here between the POUR principles and some of these recommendations or tips for designing for accessibility. So give them a choice, let them use a mouse or let them use keyboard navigation. I have a list of resources in this deck that I show how to test for keyboard navigation. I didn't know how to do it until somebody showed me. So I wanted to put it out there so that others could learn too. And then having alternate ways of presenting data. So make the data available. I remember going to a talk back in 2015 and it was called Data Sushi. And it was like, you know, the nice piece of sushi that we see on the plate, that's your dashboard, your visualization, your infographic. But within that, the rice, the crab meat or whatever you have, that's the data. And so make that available. Take the seaweed wrapper off and make it available to folks. And that could be through a Google Sheet. It could be through some of the COTS, the commercial off-the-shelf tools, have access to underlying data. Make sure you don't disable that. Test it out to make sure that people can access it. Prioritize content, that's another one. Focus on what's most important. Think about FRZ when designing dashboards, if that's the route you take. Thinking about how people read. They read left to right, top to bottom. I talked about using bands to draw attention to key metrics if that's something that you want to focus on. And, you know, I had the comment to me one time, hey, this just sounds like good practice. And they're right, it is. Data viz best practices can help with accessibility. It's just sometimes we stray away from it. So I'm just going to give a couple of examples. So I use Tableau. For folks who have used Tableau, this is very familiar. If you don't use Tableau, perfectly fine. I want you to find the story in what I'm showing. So maybe this isn't, if you're not a Tableau user, but you're Power BI or you're using Patternfly or whatever, think about what you would normally see. So this is our Superstore executive dashboard. I just have an image of it here. Oh, actually, no, well, that's interesting. Sorry about that. But I wanted to look at this dashboard from an accessibility perspective. And I used Chartability to help me do that. And so let me minimize this presentation right quick. Chartability is something that Frank Elevasky put together. He is getting his PhD in human-computer interaction from Carnegie Mellon, I think. But he is an accessibility advocate. He has a wealth of knowledge, and I was fortunate enough to be on an accessibility working group that's industry-wide with Frank. And so he's the one that did the audit of one of my dashboards. And so he has some background information here, but there's also a workbook that you can use to test your visualizations. And so there's a ton of information here. He's actually improved it quite a lot. He has some examples, especially for things that were a little hard to understand. But what I want to show you is this Word document. And let me just see that that'll come up. Oh, you know what? That comes, there we go. I need music while I'm moving some things around. Okay. So here's the Chartability workbook. And again, the link for Chartability I put in the chat, but it's also in my slide deck. And for some reason, that is not moving. All right, I will come back to that, or I'll try to come back to that. But in the interest of time, I want to keep going. But Chartability gives you the heuristics that you can test, and it will help you identify whether it passes or whether it doesn't pass, and that way you can really hone in on the things that you might need to fix. But here's the summary of my findings for this dashboard that that ships with the tool, with Tableau. The text was too small in various areas of the dashboard. It needs to be 12 pixels or 12 points. That's based on general community guidelines, I believe. Also in Chartability, Frank gives you where the heuristic comes from. So is it part of research? Is it part of community guidelines, or is it from WCAG? And the reason why he wanted to put that together was because there just wasn't a set of standards or a set of guidelines for people to follow for data visualizations. Color was the only encoding for the map, so screen readers can't read color. So even things that, I've had to unlearn, like using color in the legend for words, like for subtitles, like blue means good and orange means loss or whatever. A screen reader can't read that. So while it saves some space, that's a design choice that you have to make. Viz in tooltips, if your program allows that, so hovering over and then getting another visualization, that was inaccessible to screen readers and keyboard navigation. So the keyboard can't actually jump in and read that pop-up, that viz. So that's something that if you're developing in Tableau, I'm not as familiar with Power BI, you will want to make that choice of, is it going to add more? Is it necessary information that people need? And if that's the case, then maybe you look for another option. Instructions aren't provided on how to interact with the dashboard. That's really important. Tell people how to engage with it. And in this particular case, slider filters weren't available for use with keyboard navigation. That may be tool specific. So I think really the big thing here is test it out, make sure it works, regardless of which tool you use. And so this was an example of a more accessible visualization, still Superstore, but really took it down to sales. We've got a colored legend, KPIs, and there's also a status at the bottom. So we're telling people what we're showing them, and that's helpful as well. That's a very work-related type of dashboard. This is a non-business dashboard. So I had the opportunity to work with the team at Tableau and Team USA for the Winter Paralympics, and their requirement was accessibility. And I wanted to include this here because I wanted you to see an example, and I wanted to point out a few things. First of all, it's high contrast. To me, I think contrast is queen or king, whichever you prefer. High contrast wins the day. The bar charts are labeled, so it's easy to understand. Decorative versus informative icons. We're using icons here to get a little more creative than just having bar charts. But the thing with these icons, though, is that people, like, we're not relying on them to convey information or to solely engage with the dashboard. So you can see that we have the bars labeled, and then the associated icon is below. And we're also giving instructions. Click icons to learn more about sports teams. We asked Team USA, was this okay? And they said yes. And in general, this dashboard is easy to understand. I can really understand what we're talking about when it comes to getting to know the Team USA Winter Paralympians. It's not a heavy, it's not making my cognitive or my short-term working memory work hard. So this is a non-business example that I wanted to share with you. So then we have what I like to think of is like, what's the workflow as you're developing these out? What should you be doing? This is what I think. Some of these steps, even though there's 9 and it looks like a lot, some of these can go quickly, or they're just part of your process. So you probably only need to add a couple in. But I think the first thing is know the WCAG guidelines. You know, again, I go back to Chartability just because it's easier for me to understand than looking at WCAG, but I know that Frank has tested that out. So I feel good about leaning on Chartability versus going to the site. Knowing your audience, we've talked about that. Develop the dashboard, viz, infographic, check for accessibility, then get user feedback, then iterate on it, check for accessibility again, show your users, and publish. So I've got some practical tips I'm going to run through real quick. Again, you will have this deck so that you can just use it as like a quick way to test it out or refresh your memory. Ensure colors are distinguishable and have high contrast. Use a contrast checker. Check colors against each other and against the background. Select a readable font. I personally like Verdana, but the WHO may have a font that they want you to use. You might just want to check the materials about that. Use fonts, but here's like the thing with fonts. Use fonts that have good spacing and that don't have mirroring or imposter letters. Use a 12 pixel font, which I think roughly equates to a 10-point font for the body of text, axes, etc. Use blank space or that white space between data elements. Have like a 1 pixel cushion. That helps distinguish between the two. So if you're using stacked bar charts, area charts, that's helpful. Use double encoding, such as arrows and color. Again, help people that may not be able to see the color, and so it gives them another indication. And just a reminder, color is not readable by screen readers. Dexterity, make it accessible with a keyboard. And I always throw this in here, and switch if needed. This is where knowing your audience comes into play. I think for this project, if you make it accessible with a keyboard navigation, test it out. If you've got a Mac, VoiceOver is super helpful. You can also go to that. Reduce the amount of clicks needed to get to the insights. That's helpful because that's the less I have to use my hands to really get the message, get the story across. Comprehension. If it works for the data, use a highlight color instead of a full color palette. Focus on the most important metrics, create space, don't have a dense dashboard, let that data breathe. Focus on one story, one question. Don't try to tell multiple stories or answer multiple questions in one dashboard or infographic unless there's a flow to it. And keep it simple and consistent. I've got some common issues and ways to solve them. I'm not going to cover everything here because you'll have access to this. And I'm also, I want to keep us honest on the time. And then here are the resources. I've got everything from Chartability to typeface accessibility guidelines to Section 508 website. The Do No Harm Accessibility Guide is really is a good document to reference. And there's a link at the bottom for testing for keyboard navigation. I know I zoomed through that. I am available on LinkedIn. You can always email me. This is my work address. You can always email me or send me a message on LinkedIn. And I also would love to see your visualizations, your or infographics, what you create as a result of this, because I'm always looking for great examples of accessible content. So with that, I'm going to stop and I'll turn it back over to you, Fred.
Thanks, Emily. That's for those of you sharing your own wide knowledge. That's amazing. And there's still like 92 people on the call, plus the people I couldn't join. So thanks again.
Thank you.
I just, you'll be happy to maybe continue the discussion. I'm sure we talk for hours and hours, and I'm sure we're going to get called with Zoom. But if you have questions, follow-up questions, as I said, as we said before, as Céline said, use Slack. You can tag anyone from the team, from the WHO team, from tag Emily, tag Lindsay, and then we'll be able to basically help each other in the Slack message. Before we close up, Céline, did you want to say close off little message, or you good?
Sure. I put a little message in the chat. I encourage all data enthusiasts to I'm challenging them. So we can't wait to see what surprises you're going to have, and flex those analytical muscles, get something creative, and keep in mind accessibility is really key, and explore that disability data because it really is insightful.
Okay.
Thank you, and thank you for participating.
Thanks, everyone. So I think I maybe failed to mention is we're going to meet again end of May. I hope we'll get more capacity with Zoom. So I was chatting to Philip. I don't know if he's still on the call. We're Charlie ourselves, and we're lacking resources, as you can see. We can only connect to 100 people at a time. So Philip, thanks for the help. We can talk offline. The idea of the submissions in the WHO team would select their favorite 5 or 6 projects. If we have 80 submissions or 100 submissions, we can't all be in the same time submitting your work. So Céline's team would pre-select their favorite 5 projects, and we invite those 5 submissions to present live on the 23rd of May. So keep an eye on the Slack. I think we'll comment on those activities as well. Again, thanks everyone for joining tonight. Thanks for the helpers, for everyone from Research Good, anyone from WHO. Have a good day, have a good night, everyone, and then see you online.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, Fred, and
Bye-bye.
good luck, everyone.
Good luck.
Bye-bye.